Hello dear friends, Eleanor here. Tonight, we embark on a journey that I tell myself will take me through the loneliest corners of my life, yet also illuminate unexpected glimmers of light, like the soft golden glow on an old map in a quiet room. These days, my small house feels impossibly silent. The rooms, already sparse, seem even emptier without the figure of my husband, who passed away during the pandemic. I walk through the halls, each step creaking on the wooden floors, as if reminding me there's no one here to listen to my words, no one to answer my idle questions about the weather, the old news on TV, or even the burnt cake I tried to bake yesterday. The living room, once the place where we sat together reading, now holds only me and my little cat, exchanging silent looks that share the weight of quiet. Often I sit by the window nursing a cup of tea. The world outside carries on. Children running, passers-by hurrying, but I feel detached from it, like a spectator on the edge of life. Some nights I turn on my desk lamp and stare at old photographs, and my chest tightens. A faded smile in a wedding photo, my husband's tender gaze. I wonder if he knew how deeply I still remember him. In that quiet, I reach for my keepsakes. A yellow journal filled with trivial thoughts, a worn map we once dreamed of traveling, a pocket watch ticking softly, reminders of time gone by, and of the loneliness pressing in around me. Yet, even amid such solitude, there is a drive to connect. I remember my youth, sitting with friends, laughing about grand dreams, wondering where life would take us. Now, I long to hear a new story, witness another perspective, or simply share a smile with a stranger. Loneliness is not just the absence of people. It is the feeling of being separated from the stories and lives unfolding around you. Strangely, this loneliness mirrors history itself. When I think of the civil rights movement, of African Americans barred from basic rights, I sense a strange connection. They were isolated, marginalized, standing alone against injustice. I, in my quiet home, am only a widow, yet that same solitude allows me to understand a fraction of what it feels like to stand alone, to struggle to be seen and heard. That is why, when I step outside, even for an art exhibition or a small lecture, I search for connection. Every person I meet may offer a new perspective, a lively story, or an unexpected joy. My husband once said, "Eleanor, life is made of the pieces you find along the way. Don't let them slip away for fear of being alone." So, I prepare for a new day. I pull on my worn sweater, place my hand on the door, and take a deep breath, telling myself, today, I will seek stories. Even if loneliness weighs heavily, I want to step outside, meet unknown people, listen to their world, and share a part of mine. If you enjoy these journeys through time, don't forget to like and subscribe. And now, let us begin. A journey where loneliness and memory meet unexpected companions, and where past and present merge in every living story. The morning light slips through the curtains, pale and tentative, like a shy visitor. I sit by the kitchen table, my fingers wrapped around a cup of tea that has long since cooled. Outside, the neighborhood stirs. Birds chase each other across the rooftops, a dog barks somewhere down the street, and the neighbor's laughter drifts faintly through the air. I am present, yet removed, a shadow among ordinary lives, watching their routines without participating. My little cat, Tia Song, brushes against my legs, demanding attention I struggle to give. I kneel and stroke her soft fur, feeling her warmth, her insistence on life, even in the quiet emptiness of our home. She is my companion, yes, but she cannot answer the unspoken questions lingering in my mind. Will tomorrow feel the same? Will I ever feel truly seen again? I decide to take a walk. The streets are familiar, yet each turn reminds me of absence. The corner where we once bought morning pastries now feels like a shrine to memory. I can almost hear his voice, teasing me for spilling coffee, laughing as I tried to scold him. The echoes are tender, bittersweet, and they tug at my chest, with the weight of what is no longer here. As I wander further, I pass a small cafe I had never noticed before. A bell chimes softly as I enter, and the scent of roasted beans and warm bread wraps around me. The barista greets me with a smile, a simple human acknowledgement, and something in me softens. Conversation flickers briefly with another customer, an elderly man reading a newspaper. I nod at him, and he nods back. A tiny bridge of connection forms in the vast expanse of solitude. It is moments like these that sustain me, small interactions that remind me, life persists outside my memories. Yet the loneliness remains, persistent and subtle, like a shadow stretching across the floor even in sunlight. I carry it with me, yet I learn to hold it gently, not as a weight, but as a companion that teaches me to notice the nuances of life. The tremor in a voice, the quick smile of a stranger, the hesitant kindness of someone who might just understand. I think of history often during these walks. I recall the stories I used to tell in my classroom. Struggles, triumphs, the resilience of those who endured much more than I could imagine. Their courage is a guidepost. I am just one woman facing the slow ache of solitude, yet even in this I can recognize the strength within. I may walk alone, but my awareness of the world, its joys and sorrows, victories and defeats, gives me a quiet purpose. Returning home, I carry the city's subtle pulse with me. I brew another cup of tea and settle into my chair by the window, tea song curling beside me. I look out at the dimming sky and whisper to myself, life continues. And though I walk through its quiet spaces alone, I am not entirely isolated. There are stories to witness, small moments of connection waiting to be noticed, and perhaps, in time, shared. The next day arrives with a gray drizzle that clings to the city like a hesitant sigh. I pull my coat tighter and step out, each footfall echoing softly against the wet pavement. The rhythm of walking becomes a kind of meditation, a way to keep my mind tethered to the present while memories rise and fall like tides. I find myself at the small park near the old library. The benches are damp, leaves scattered and slick underfoot. I sit anyway, allowing the chill to prick my skin. Tia Sang waits at home, and yet the absence of his voice beside me feels heavier here. I remember how we used to come to this park, him humming under his breath while I argued over which path to take. I smile faintly, and the smile quickly fades, a delicate shadow across my chest. A young woman jogs past, earbuds in, lost in her own world. A little boy chases a bright red ball, laughing. The sound reaches me, and for a moment it feels intrusive, yet strangely comforting. I realize that life moves in its small motions, indifferent to the gaps left in my heart, yet offering tiny moments of warmth if I notice them. I pull my scarf tighter and rise, wandering toward the library. Its doors stand firm, familiar and unchanging. Inside, the scent of old books greets me, a scent that feels like home. I run my fingers along the spines, remembering the countless times I guided young hands through these same aisles, introducing stories of distant lands, of courage and hope. Those students are gone now, scattered like leaves in the wind, yet the stories remain, and I am still their custodian. I settle at a table by the window, a book open before me though my eyes are only partially on the page. The rain traces rivulets down the glass, distorting the city outside. I imagine him walking beside me, pointing out something trivial that would have made us both laugh. The thought pierces me with longing, and I close my eyes briefly, letting the sorrow wash over me. It is a ritual now, a measured acknowledgement of loss, neither ignored nor indulged excessively. A librarian passes, murmuring a quiet greeting. I respond, and the sound of my own voice startles me slightly, fragile and human. No one knows my story here, yet for a fleeting moment, I feel acknowledged. Even the smallest recognition of my existence feels like a fragile lifeline, a reminder that solitude does not have to be suffocating. I leave the library as the drizzle lightens, returning home with a heaviness in my chest but also a flicker of something else. The awareness that the world is still populated with lives brushing against mine, even briefly. Back at my apartment I find Tia Sang waiting, her soft purrs a balm to the quiet ache. I stroke her fur and whisper to the empty room as if speaking to him, as if the walls themselves could carry my words. I am still here, still watching, still remembering. Evenings are the hardest. Shadows stretch long across the floor, and the ticking of the clock becomes an echo of all the hours we once shared. Yet I light a candle, let the flame dance in the darkness, and hold on to its warmth. Life persists even in loneliness, and the smallest gestures, a shared glance, a remembered laugh, the softness of fur, become proof that connection, however fleeting, is still possible. Morning arrives reluctantly, filtered through the thin curtains like hesitant gold. I linger in bed a few moments longer than necessary, listening to the city breathe outside my window. The apartment feels emptier than usual, the silence pressing against my ribs. I reach for Tia Sang, curled into a small warm ball beside me, her tiny presence the only resistance to the hollow quiet. Breakfast is a ritual of solitude. I pour tea, toast lightly browned, and sit by the window. The world moves outside, delivery bikes weaving between cars, pedestrians with umbrellas dipping like miniature dancers. But here, I am static, a fixture in my own life, watching from behind glass. The absence of his laughter, his casual complaints about my tea, is a hollow echo. I decide to leave the apartment, forced by a restlessness that is neither pain nor comfort, but something in between. The streets are damp, gray, lined with buildings that seem to sag under the weight of decades. I walk slowly, each step deliberate, each breath drawing in the chill that makes my lungs ache. Solitude can be oppressive, but it can also sharpen perception. Today I notice a man struggling with a bicycle, a small child clinging to his hand, and without thinking, I cross the street to help. "Careful with the chain," I murmur, and the man glances up, surprise flickering across his face. His gratitude is brief, fleeting, but enough. It makes a strange warmth cool in my chest, mingling with the familiar ache of missing him. For a moment, I am not entirely alone. My hands smell faintly of oil and cold, but also of life, of the kind of connection that exists in passing kindnesses. I continue wandering, following the rhythm of the city as it hums around me. At the corner cafe, the barista nods in recognition. I order my usual, sit in a quiet corner, and watch the rain begin again, delicate patterns on the glass. I think of the times he would have teased me for my stubborn choice of black tea over coffee, how we would have laughed and argued over trivialities that now seem monumental in their absence. Loneliness is strange, sharp and dull at once. I feel it most when no one notices, when a room remains empty, not because it is unused, but because it remembers someone else. Yet, even here I glimpse small threads connecting me back to the world. A nod, a smile, a shared struggle. These threads are fragile, easily broken, but they exist. And for now, that is enough. Returning home, the evening descends faster than I expect. Tia Sang greets me with a cheer-up and a rub against my ankles. I set the kettle on, watch the steam curl like soft fingers reaching toward the ceiling. And think of him, the life we shared, the silence that followed. I speak softly to her, to him, to the air, weaving words into the emptiness, creating a presence where absence dominates. Tonight, the candle burns brighter, and I linger beside it, letting its flicker push back the shadows. There is grief here, yes, but also a fragile recognition. Life continues in the small acts of attention, the subtle acknowledgments of others, the threads that connect the living to one another. Solitude does not define me entirely. Memory and presence intertwine, leaving a trace of warmth amidst the chill of loss. The apartment greets me with a familiar scent of old books and worn fabric, but it carries a subtle emptiness that no candle or warm tea can chase away. I move through the rooms slowly, tracing my fingers along the spines of books he once recommended. The cover edges softened by countless readings. Each title is a memory, a whisper of laughter, a shared argument over historical interpretations that now lives only in my mind. I stop by the kitchen, where the faint outline of his coffee mug lingers, stained with the residue of mornings past. I imagine him standing at the counter, sipping slowly, eyes half closed in that way he did when thinking deeply. The absence is palpable, pressing against my chest, making each breath deliberate and heavy. On the windowsill, a photograph leans slightly, the frame tilted, capturing a day at the seaside, his arm around me, the sun catching his hair in a way I can still recall with unsettling clarity. I kneel briefly, resting my forehead against the glass, wishing for the impossibility of time reversed. Loneliness coils tightly around me here, sharper than the chill that seeps through the apartment walls. Yet even in the ache, small gestures tether me to life. Tia Sang jumps onto my lap, nudging her tiny head into my hands, and I laugh softly, the sound breaking some of the tension in my chest. I reach for the tea kettle, pour hot water into a cup, and for a moment let the warmth cradle my hands as if offering a small silent comfort. The world outside continues, indifferent and bustling, but within these four walls, life lingers in fragments. I open a drawer and find a bundle of letters, their edges yellowed, the handwriting familiar and precise. Reading them, I feel him in every word, the cadence of his thoughts, the gentleness underlying his humor. Some sentences make my eyes sting, some make me smile through the sting, and some leave me suspended between grief and gratitude. These letters are my lifeline to him, proof that what was shared cannot be erased, even if the presence has vanished. Night approaches, soft and inevitable. The streetlights cast their mellow glow through the curtains, and the apartment seems to breathe with me. I light a candle on the desk, the flame flickering in rhythm with my pulse, a fragile heartbeat against the silence. I speak aloud to no one, to the memory of him, to the small cat curled beside me, to the shadows that cling to the corners. I am here. I endure. I remember. And in these words, however quiet, the world still contains connection, however thin. Though the absence is immense, the small acts, holding the cat, touching a letter, letting the tea warm my hands, provide a thread of continuity. Grief may fill the spaces he once occupied, but life threads through it, subtle and persistent. In this, there is a fragile hope, that even in solitude one can find presence, and in memory one can find courage to move forward, step by tentative step. The morning air greets me with a crispness that bites at my cheeks, a reminder that the world continues beyond the walls I have inhabited for so long. I wrap my coat tightly around my frail shoulders, feeling the familiar weight of absence pressing gently against me. Each step outside is deliberate, as though the pavement itself is questioning my resolve to leave the sanctuary of solitude. The streets are alive with motion, children laughing, vendors calling, the faint whine of bicycles passing by. For a moment, the rhythm of life feels alien, almost too loud, yet irresistibly inviting. I clutch my bag, holding on to a small notebook inside, a talisman of thoughts I cannot yet share aloud. My footsteps echo softly against the cobblestones, each one a quiet affirmation. I am here. I exist. I am moving. At the corner cafe I pause, hesitating. The aroma of fresh bread and coffee pulls at something inside me, a memory of mornings shared with him, and a pang of solitude cuts sharply. But then a barista with a gentle smile greets me, unaware of the storms I carry beneath my coat. "Good morning, ma'am," she says, simple and unassuming, yet enough to draw a tiny thread of connection through the vast emptiness inside me. I nod, murmuring my own greeting, and find a seat by the window. I watch the world pass, a mother guiding her small child, a man reading a newspaper with intense concentration, an old dog trotting loyally at its owner's side. Observing them, I feel a stirring, fragile and unfamiliar, a reminder that connection exists outside my memories. The loneliness still lurks, heavy as ever, but now it is tempered with the whisper of possibility. Perhaps life has not entirely abandoned me. Perhaps there are moments yet to be discovered. When the tea arrives, I hold the warm cup in my hands, letting its heat seep into my fingers. I write a few sentences in the notebook, though no one will read them. The act itself feels like a bridge, a small claim to agency, a soft rebellion against the inertia of grief. Each word is a step, each thought a quiet assertion. I am more than the absence, more than the memories that haunt me. A stray cat brushes against my ankle, tail curling with unspoken familiarity. I reach down, feeling its warmth, and for a fleeting instant, the apartment, the letters, the endless quiet, all the spaces of my grief, fade. The world outside, so insistent and unyielding, seems a little softer, a little more welcoming. Even the simplest gestures, a smile, a touch, a shared moment with a creature unaware of sorrow, become profound acts of survival. The sun climbs higher, spilling golden light across the street. I rise from the chair, finishing my tea slowly, and step back into the flow of life. My heart is heavy, yes, but not paralyzed. The city hums around me, indifferent, yes, but alive. And in its indifference I find a strange solace, that I am part of something bigger, something moving, and that even amid the shadows of solitude, life persists. Today, the apartment will wait. Today I will move, however cautiously, into a world that is both frightening and inviting. Today, I carry the memory of him like a quiet flame within, and the promise of encounters yet to come like sparks in the wind. Perhaps, after all, the world is not entirely empty, and perhaps the heart, though battered, can learn to trust its rhythm again. The next morning, I find myself drawn once more to the street, the chill of dawn brushing against my cheeks. I carry with me a small loaf of bread, purchased with careful consideration at the corner bakery. It is a modest offering, yet in my heart, it is meant as a bridge, a tentative gesture toward the world that I have long kept at bay. As I walk, the neighborhood awakens around me. Windows open, letting in the soft chorus of everyday life. A kettle whistles, a dog barks, the rustle of newspapers carried on the wind. I am invisible and yet present, a quiet witness to the ebb and flow of humanity. At the park, a young boy chases after a bright red balloon, laughter spilling from him in unrestrained waves. He collides lightly with an elderly man on the bench who merely chuckles and ruffles the child's hair. I watch from a distance, and the simplicity of the scene pricks at something long dormant inside me. An ache for connection, for shared existence. A woman approaches me as I pause near a row of flowering shrubs, perhaps noticing the hesitation in my step. Her hair is streaked with silver, her eyes kind, unassuming. "Good morning," she says, her voice a gentle thread weaving toward me. I nod, returning the greeting, and something fragile stirs, recognition perhaps, or the faintest trace of trust. I offer her the bread. She looks surprised, then smiles, eyes crinkling in warmth. "Thank you," she whispers, a simple acknowledgement that feels heavier than words. In that exchange, I feel a crack in the wall I have built around myself, a wall that has for years shielded me from the world, yet imprisoned me within my own grief. The cat from yesterday appears again, weaving between my ankles as if sensing my tentative courage. I bend, scratching behind its ears, and it leans into my touch. I realize then that these small, unassuming connections, an acknowledgement, a gesture, a shared moment, are threads that begin to stitch the fabric of life back together. I linger on the park bench, the sun climbing higher, bathing the path in warmth. Around me, life continues, unyielding and indifferent, yet somehow inviting. I take a deep breath, letting the air fill the hollow spaces left by absence and sorrow. The world is still vast and unpredictable, yet I am learning, slowly, to navigate it, not merely as a survivor of loss but as someone who may yet participate in its quiet wonders. As I rise to leave, the woman waves, and the boy with the balloon smiles shyly in my direction. I nod to both, a silent promise that I will return, that I will engage, even if only a little at a time. The day stretches ahead, uncertain yet alive, and I step forward with a hesitant but tangible sense of possibility. For the first time in many months, I feel the faint stirrings of hope. It is not the dramatic kind, not a blinding epiphany, but a subtle current beneath the weight of solitude. A whisper that life, though fractured, can still offer moments of grace. By mid-morning, I find myself lingering near the little bookshop on the corner. Its windows display an array of worn classics and new releases, a small sanctuary of stories waiting to be discovered. I inhale the familiar scent of aged paper, mingled with the faint aroma of coffee from the cafe across the street, and it feels almost like stepping into another world. A place where sorrow might be tempered by narrative and imagination. Inside, the shop is quiet, save for the soft shuffle of a clerk arranging volumes and the low hum of an old heater. I wander among the shelves, my fingers brushing against spines of books that once spoke to me in different times. The clerk, a young man with gentle eyes and an easy smile, notices my hesitation. "Looking for something particular?" he asks, and I pause, unsure if I should admit the weight in my chest. "I'm just browsing," I answer, my voice soft, carrying a trace of uncertainty. He nods, giving me space, yet his presence is grounding, a small anchor in the shifting tides of my solitude. I select a book at random, a worn edition of historical essays, and hold it to my chest. Somehow, the act of choosing, of carrying a piece of the world into my arms, feels like an assertion of life, an acknowledgement that I, too, still belong somewhere. As I pay, the clerk engages me in conversation about the city's history and the books that shaped his childhood. I listen, responding when I can, and I notice how the corners of my lips lift slightly, unbidden. For a fleeting moment, the emptiness that has shadowed me feels less oppressive, replaced by a tentative warmth. These small exchanges, simple and human, are fragile threads, yet they bind me slowly back into the fabric of ordinary life. Stepping outside, I feel the sun on my face, a gentle reminder that the world continues beyond the walls of grief. I pause by a bench, offering crumbs of bread to the birds that gather hesitantly near me. They flutter and chirp, skittish yet trusting, and I watch them with quiet fascination. Their vulnerability, their tentative acceptance of the gesture, mirrors my own cautious outreach to the world. I think of the cat I encountered days ago. Its small, soft presence lingered in my mind, a symbol that even the slightest connection can awaken care and responsibility. Perhaps it is not grand gestures that rebuild a heart, but these tiny acts of recognition. Feeding a bird, greeting a stranger, sharing a smile. I sit for a while, letting the city's rhythm wash over me, the distant laughter of children, the murmur of conversation, the faint clatter of footsteps on cobblestones. The world is alive, and though my grief is a constant companion, it no longer dominates every thought. I am reminded that healing is incremental, stitched together by small intentional acts that speak louder than words. Rising to leave, I clutch the book to my chest once more, a talisman of sorts, and take a deep breath. I step forward, not yet fully unburdened but with a quiet resolve, to seek connection, to participate in life's gentle exchanges, and to allow myself, cautiously, to be seen again. In that moment, I realize that solitude can coexist with the stirrings of engagement. The path ahead is uncertain, yet for the first time in months I feel the faint, steady pulse of hope beneath the weight of loss. Late that afternoon, the chill in the air is softened by a pale sun slipping toward the horizon. I find myself standing by the hallway of my building, hesitating at the door of a neighbor whose presence I have long acknowledged but never approached. Mrs. Delaney, a widowed woman like me, lives just 2 floors above, and though I have exchanged polite nods, conversation has been rare. Today, however, something nudges me. A quiet insistence that solitude, however familiar, need not be absolute. I knock gently, unsure if I will be welcomed. The door swings open, revealing her surprised, weathered face, and she blinks at me with an expression somewhere between curiosity and guarded warmth. "Oh, Eleanor," she says, her voice carrying a fragile lilt. "What brings you here?" "I just thought I might say hello," I reply, my words small, almost fragile, as if I am testing the waters of human contact. She smiles, a slow, deliberate curve of lips that seems to fold the shadows in her eyes into something softer. "Well, come in," she says, stepping aside. Her apartment is cozy, filled with the scent of simmering tea and faint traces of lavender. The walls are adorned with photographs of family and friends long absent, each frame a story of its own, a testament to lives lived in parallel with mine. We sit across from one another at her small kitchen table, and I notice how the quietness between words is comfortable rather than oppressive. A delicate space where connection might quietly bloom. Mrs. Delaney talks about her afternoon walk, the small joys of noticing the changing leaves, and I find myself responding with tales of the city, anecdotes of books I have read, and reflections on fleeting encounters with strangers that have left small imprints on my heart. For the first time in months, my voice feels natural, unburdened by the weight of explaining or justifying my grief. It simply exists, and is met with acknowledgement. A soft knock at the door interrupts our conversation. Her young grandson, visiting for the weekend, peeks inside with wide, innocent eyes. "Hi," he says, and I realize how the sight of a child, a small, living emblem of continuity, fills a hollow place within me I had long forgotten existed. I offer him a warm smile, and he beams back, trusting without hesitation. As evening descends, I rise to leave, feeling a strange mixture of relief and apprehension. The corridors of my building, once silent and indifferent, now hum faintly with possibility. I am reminded that community is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it is subtle, a smile across a hallway, a shared cup of tea, or the gentle recognition of presence. Stepping back into the cool air, I clutch the little book I carried earlier, my mind stirred by the realization that even in loss, human connection offers quiet sustenance. My grief, still present, seems less like a barrier and more like a companion, acknowledged, respected, yet not all-consuming. Tonight I will sit by my window, listening to the distant murmur of the city. And for the first time in a long while, I feel not entirely alone. The world has not healed me, nor have I fully healed myself. But the faint flickers of engagement, however small, remind me that life persists, inviting me to step toward it, one careful, tentative step at a time. The morning sun seeps through the thin curtains, casting a pale glow across my modest living room. Snow clings stubbornly to the edges of the windowsill, a frozen reminder of nights spent in silence. Yet today, there is a subtle difference in the air, a softness, a quiet anticipation that I cannot name. A knock at the door startles me. Hesitant, I rise, each step weighted with the familiar trepidation of engagement. On the threshold stands Mrs. Delaney, her hands clasped around a small wicker basket. "I thought you might enjoy a warm breakfast," she says, her voice carrying an unassuming kindness that fills the room more thoroughly than any fire could. Inside the basket, fresh bread, homemade preserves, and a thermos of steaming tea sit like treasures against the chill. I am taken aback, momentarily speechless. The gesture, simple yet profound, strikes a chord deep within me. For so long I have moved through the world as though invisible, my grief a private, suffocating companion. And yet here is someone acknowledging my existence, offering care without expectation, without question. We sit together at my small kitchen table. The bread is warm, the tea fragrant, but it is the conversation, the effortless, genuine exchange of words, that nourishes me most. She asks about my reading, about the cat, about small things I had thought too trivial to share. And I tell her, slowly, cautiously, of the long evenings alone, of the ache of memories, and of the delicate, persistent thread of hope that sometimes flickers in my chest. As the morning light brightens, I notice the shadows in my apartment soften. The silence, once oppressive, now holds room for laughter, for acknowledgement, for presence. Even Snowy, curled on the windowsill, seems to sense the shift, stretching and yawning in a contented rhythm. Before she leaves, Mrs. Delaney takes my hand briefly. "You are not alone," she says simply. And in those 3 words lies a universe of meaning. The weight of months, years, decades even, does not vanish, but it tilts, ever so slightly, toward possibility, toward connection, toward life. Standing at the door after she leaves, I breathe deeply. The city outside hums quietly, indifferent in its vastness. Yet within this apartment, a tiny world has shifted. I feel the faint stirrings of courage, the willingness to open the door again, to step into the world that has for so long seemed distant and unattainable. I am still Eleanor, still marked by loss, by solitude, by the aching absence of a life once shared. Yet today a door has been opened, not just by Mrs. Delaney's basket, but by the recognition that small gestures, quiet companionship, and genuine care have the power to pierce the heaviest shadows. Tonight, as the city exhales into darkness, I will sit by my window once more. I will watch the lights flicker, listen to the faint murmur of life beyond, and feel, for the first time in a long while, that while loss has shaped me, connection still waits. That even in winter, even in silence, warmth can return if only I dare to receive it. Days pass in gentle rhythm, each one a quiet echo of the last. Yet I notice a subtle shift in myself, a willingness to acknowledge the small gestures, the brief interactions that once might have seemed inconsequential. I begin to leave my apartment more often, venturing to the corner bakery where the baker greets me by name, his eyes crinkling in recognition. I stop at the park where children's laughter drifts across the benches, and I let myself linger, feeling their exuberance brush against the hollow spaces within me. One afternoon, carrying Snowy in her small carrier, I find myself at the library. The familiar scent of worn paper and polished wood wraps around me, grounding me. I wander among the shelves, fingers brushing spines that tell stories of lives distant and yet strangely familiar. A young mother struggling to quiet a fidgeting child catches my eye. Without thinking, I offer a soft word of encouragement. Her smile, tentative but grateful, surprises me, sparking a warmth that had lain dormant for far too long. I begin to realize that connection is not an all-or-nothing proposition. It is incremental, fragile, and often unspoken. A nod, a shared glance, a small act of kindness, they accumulate, layer upon layer, reshaping the contours of my solitary existence. And yet, the shadow of absence remains. Even amidst the quiet camaraderie of the park or the brief laughter at the bakery, memories of my husband press gently against my ribs, a persistent ache that no kindness can fully soothe. Snowy, ever perceptive, seems to understand. When I return home each evening, she curls tightly against me, a small pulse of life reminding me that attachment and care can still exist, even after loss. I find myself speaking aloud to her, recounting the minutiae of my day, the fleeting moments of connection, and sometimes quietly, the sharp pangs of grief. By the 3rd week, I am recognized by the neighborhood shopkeepers and the familiar faces in the park. They do not know the weight I carry. The years of laughter and love now extinguished, the evenings spent in silence. But they offer a gentle acknowledgement of presence, a subtle welcome into a world I had long abandoned. Each small interaction, each fleeting recognition, is a stitch in the tapestry of my renewed existence. And I am learning slowly that to be present is to be vulnerable, that each active engagement carries a risk of disappointment, of exposure, yet also the possibility of warmth, that grief, while ever present, need not dictate the entirety of my days. In these quiet realizations I find a tentative courage, a fragile but persistent hope, that even the loneliest hearts can find moments of resonance with the world beyond their walls. Night descends, bringing with it the familiar hush of solitude. Yet tonight, as I sit by the window with Snowy curled at my side, I no longer feel entirely hollow. There is a rhythm now, a soft pulse of connection threading through my life, reminding me that even in the aftermath of profound loss, the world continues to offer unexpected companions, and fleeting, yet meaningful, intersections. Evening settles softly over the quiet street, and I sit by my window, Snowy nestled in my lap. The world outside hums with life, distant voices, the faint clatter of footsteps, the warm glow of lamps in neighboring apartments. For a long time, I had shut myself away from it all, thinking that grief and loneliness were permanent companions. But now I realize that life, with all its fragility, continues to extend its hand. I think of the small gestures, the baker's smile, the child's laughter in the park, the quiet nods of neighbors. I think of Snowy, her soft purring like a heartbeat, reminding me that care and love endure, even in the aftermath of loss. And I understand at last that to feel pain is not the end. It is the measure of what we have loved, what we have held dear. The shadows of absence will always linger, pressing gently against the corners of my heart. But in their place, threads of connection, moments of grace, and tiny sparks of joy weave a new tapestry, one that is fragile, yet alive. Tonight, as the wind whispers through the trees and the city glows with quiet warmth, I allow myself to breathe fully, to feel both sorrow and serenity, and to hope. I am Eleanor, once adrift in solitude, now walking slowly toward a life that still holds light, even if it is soft, fleeting, and fragile. And in that light I find a quiet courage to continue, to cherish what remains, to embrace what comes, and to remember that even the loneliest hearts can discover moments of connection, love, and peace. Snowy stirs gently, lifting her small head to look at me. I smile, and for the first time in many months, it feels as if the world is leaning just a little closer, offering its warmth, its rhythm, its quiet companionship. And I, at last, lean back, letting it in.